Welcome everyone to the November 2021 Board of Directors meeting for the Whitaker Community Council. My name's Ian and I wanted to do something a little crazy. Last time we showed some slides and that's what I want to do right now and give folks an introduction who might be watching from home for their first time, what the Whitaker Community Council is and what we do. So who are we? Well, we're your neighbors. You might recognize us biking in the WIT or walking our respective pets, or from the work that we do in the community. Here's a picture of board members past and present in front of a bus that we had ads on showcasing members of our community, Akon and Gloria, who own Equiano Coffee, as well as some messaging to prevent COVID-19 infection and transmission, our One for All for One campaign. And what do we do? Well, we help each other out. We run wellness clinics where we've vaccinated over 850 folks so far. We have gallons upon gallons of hand sanitizer to members of the community. We put out maps for our art walks, which we do in partnership with local artists, both performing and visual. We host impromptu galleries and provide funding, like this backyard jam session during 2020, where we funded performing arts. And we also do work through direct outreach to members of our community who really need help, like our unhoused community and some volunteers and members of our board at the time distributing hydration supplies during the hottest time of the year. So how did we do all this stuff? Well, we did it with committees. Public health and safety was the one that we just had tonight, where we're going to upload the video in just a little bit, but we also have our social justice committee, the Whitaker Community Art Team, and our transportation committee. You can check out more of the transportation committee's work on YouTube. And last meeting, our general meeting, we had a transportation rich meeting that you can check out all of the fun and exciting stuff that we've done through our transportation committee and the stuff that we've yet to do. So if you want to get involved, please join us. There's lots of opportunities to volunteer and we hope that you get involved. The Whitaker Community Council serves two functions. One is our neighborhood association. We're one of 23 neighborhood associations in the city of Eugene. And we also serve as a nonprofit organization, and we have a board of directors which manages our operations and makes strategic decisions for how we serve our membership, folks who live, work, or volunteer or own property in the Whitaker. So tonight we've moved around the agenda a little bit to make more time for certain things. First, we're going to do introductions and do a little bit on meeting facilitation process and agenda review. Then we're going to get into public comment, and then we're going to have our charter ad hoc committee present and do a question and answer before we get into COVID grants, updates, and time for motions, and then finishing up with the Whitaker History Project. So it seems like, oh, Margaret's about to join us. Like everyone has been in the meeting before, so they know how to participate. So I won't go into the very fun 4 different ways to participate. But for those of you who are at home, there's 4 different ways to participate in meetings, and it's super easy. You can raise your physical hand, you can raise your virtual hand using Zoom, you can voice your interest to participate in the Zoom chat, and then you can also, if you're using a phone to call in, you pick up your phone, and I'll pick on Stephen tonight. If I was Stephen calling in, I'd say Stephen, and that would be a little sign to me that you have an interest in participating. So with that, I'll open it up to public comment, folks in the community or on the board who want to share information, whether it's community concerns or project updates, or they pet a very cool cat on their way home. I would just welcome you to share or forever hold your peace. Delinia, you've got your hand up first, and then quick hand Dan's was actually not as quick as he usually is. So I'm going to have to cool glasses Dan, I guess. So we've got Delinia in the queue, and then Dan, you're on deck. Delinia?
So I'm wondering if it's a good idea if instead of doing the charter review piece, we maybe talk about our communication, and I feel like maybe ready to do that until we clear up everything else. As far as, is that okay?
Sure. How do folks feel about that? Talking about communication first and then jumping into charter stuff. Sounds excellent. Perfect. So it sounds like we've got blessing from folks. And Stephen, I saw your hand up, so I'll add you to the queue. Next is Dan, and then Stephen, you're on deck. Dan?
Yeah, I just wanted to give everybody a quick update about the WCC room, which is ongoing struggle, but they need us to get our stuff out of there, minus that closet full where the drawer is, where all the old files were, and a ton of art supplies that are in there. We can still maintain that closet, but the chairs and the dividers need to be gone by the end of this weekend. And I just wanted to get a show of hands about anybody that would have any time to move some stuff out of there with me. I've got a van, yada, yada. Either the hours you can be in there are Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 4 to 7. And then to suggest, as I was speaking to Sam Hahn a week ago about finding another place to use, they said that we could continue to have meetings there if and when we get back to in-person stuff. But Sam Hahn suggested, and he's one of the former chairs, that room sucks. That's his words. And it is just a place. He suggested we contact venue 252 and also right across the street, Wildcraft, which has their upstairs bar and show place for places that we could, if we ever want to get back to in-person meetings, use that. Not a place to store stuff, neither of them, but places that we could use to meet. So anybody that feels like they can help with getting stuff out of there. We loaded everything out of my van and Thea's truck in 20 minutes. It's not a giant amount of work, but we do need a place for the things to go to. So that is my spiel. And sadly, I am going to have to leave the meeting a little bit early tonight. So I will be with you as long as I can.
For sure. Thanks for that, Dan. So I think I saw Jen's hand up first and then Doriandra. Jen, did you want to be added to the queue or did you want to respond to Dan directly? Did you want to be added to the queue or to respond to Dan directly?
Both.
Jen?
Both.
Okay, so I'll add you to the queue, and then I think Doriandra and Thea have comments responding to Dan. So go ahead, Jen, and respond to Dan, and then I'll add you to the queue after that.
Well, that was my question, is where are we going to put it? I thought Margaret had taken care of that situation. Did she not, Margaret? I thought we were renting a place next to the paint place on River Railroad.
My understanding is that we are gonna put it in the space at by the Mission, which is a very large space, and there's plenty of room there.
Okay.
And I think Doriandra might have a comment addressing that or somewhat similar. So Doriandra, I saw your hand up too.
Okay, yep. I have worked out an arrangement with the Mission to let us bring everything that's inside of the community center to there. And so we'll be storing it there without stress or concern. The chairs, all the clinic stuff has a good home. And then I know that there's such valuable and fragile kind of ephemera and history there that you guys have also stored there. So I suggested earlier that we can use one of the lockable lockers there if we're able to transfer all those things into like really sturdy plastic safe containers. And Dan would know better about the actual quantity of that. But Dan, one quick important question is the Mission will allow us to do the move-in preferably during business hours. So if we overlap and can't get it there Friday, are you still open to putting everything that's huge in the van to just store it till Monday?
Yeah, absolutely. That's no problem at all.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Dan. And apologies to Stephen. We're just having a robust conversation. And Jen, your hand's up. So I assume that you wanted to add to the storage conversation. So if that's the case, please go ahead and then we'll move on to Stephen after you.
Okay, I think that we really do have to really focus on finding a place to store our stuff because we've been moving around for years now. And I'm worried about the newly, I don't know if we received our technology yet. It makes me anxious and nervous that we don't have a home. And I thought we would have one by now. And for whatever it's worth, I will find I have some room in my studio, which is under lock and key, to keep any of our expensive equipment that it will be safe, because my stuff is safe. and anybody that tries to get in, I'll kill them. Simple as that.
Yeah, thanks for that comment. Thea, you've been super patient, and Stephen, I apologize. I want to make sure that we have the conversation wrapped up before we jump onto you.
So Dan, I'm available to help move any of those times. And if we can't get in till Monday, maybe we go on Sunday evening so that we have it not in our cars, but I can put it underneath, but it's not going to be in a garage. So I can put things there, and I don't want to move them twice. So I'm willing to move. And Jennifer, those cabinets are locked and safe there if that's where everybody decides. That's it. I'm available, and I probably won't be on all night. I'm waiting for a call from the hospital.
Dan, feel free to close this out.
Yeah, sure enough. Yeah, my van is, once again, it's right across the street from the WCC room. And literally, I mean, we could walk things over there, but I'll drive in front of the building. But Sunday night works great. Once again, it's 4 to 7. And actually, those would be great hours for me. And it locks. Everything can stay in there. It's really doesn't look like anything that anyone would want to find out what's inside of it anyway. So why don't we just plan on that? And we can move Monday.
Thanks so much. Stephen, you've been super patient, and I really appreciate you being so. But you are next in the queue, so feel free to jump right on it.
No problem. I just wanted to report back that before I went on my trip last month, people recommended that Brad would be the right person to keep the COVID statistics updated. That worked out really well. Brad went above and beyond the call of duty, and the statistics have not slipped for 1 week. Currently we have, in the last week in our zip code, we only had 50 new cases, which is the lowest it's been since before the Delta variant hit. Our vaccination rate in our zip code has just finally got above 70%. That's higher than both Springfield zip codes and higher than one other zip code in Eugene, but it's still below the 4 of the other zip codes, but 70% is doing pretty well. So big drop in numbers continuing, and vaccination rates still going up steadily. So that's my report.
Thanks so much. I've got a quick thing that I wanted to do before we get started with our agenda, and that's I'd like to make a motion to nominate Dan to represent the Whitaker Community Council on the neighborhood representative for Housing RFP Evaluation Committee. And for those of you who don't remember, Dan expressed interest last week when we had Ellen from the city of Eugene. She's a housing finance analyst, join us to see if there could be a member from the Whitaker Community Council to join the process that the city's undergoing. Delinia seconded, thanks Delinia, to review a proposal for an affordable housing development in the Whitaker called Polk 2.0. It's actually the second phase of a development on North Polk Street. And I was just about to call on you, Stephen. So please steal my thunder before I embarrass myself.
Yeah, I repeat the offer I made last week that if Dan accepts the position and is voted in, I'm willing to spend time with Dan to answer any questions he might have about the project. We've been involved with it quite a while, and I've read the proposal end to end, and I think I'm in a position to answer quite a lot of questions. It might save a little bit of Dan's time. Anyway, I repeat that offer.
And it's an exceptional project, you know, just to go in a little bit more detail. It's providing housing for unhoused youth specifically. So it totally serves the needs of our community. And, you know, the organization Dev Northwest, formerly NEDCO, is actually a spinoff from the Whitaker Community Council. So it really feels to me like it's full circle. So the motion is
it's primarily for young people who've aged out of foster care, but it's not exclusively that. And that's a huge underserved population in Oregon as a whole.
Thanks so much. I knew that I was going to embarrass myself sooner rather than later. So Stephen with the save. So we have a motion and a second for Dan to represent the WCC on the Housing RFP Evaluation Committee. And we have I don't know if it's a second or a question. Jen, feel free to raise your hand.
I believe that Brad Foster said he would also like to work on this committee. He's not here tonight because it's a board meeting, but I think you should keep him in mind.
Oh, that's awesome. And so Dan's got his hand up. So I would amend the motion to say that we put forward Dan as the nominee and then Brad as the alternate if Dan's not able to make a meeting or something like that. Dan, feel free to go jump on ahead, and then Delinia, I saw your hand up as well.
Cool. Yes, I spoke to Brad at some length 2 days ago and mentioned that to him, and he's totally fine with sharing information with me in the same way that Stephen may or may not be, but he said he'd enjoy the task again. So I'm just putting that out there. And then Claire and Andrew and I met with Brad last night on the transportation committee, which he's going to fold into. So that's some Brad news for everybody, but yeah, he's on board to help where he can.
Sweet. Thanks so much. Delinia, I saw your hand up as well.
I was just voting fast. Sorry, trigger finger.
Sorry, I was muting myself. No worries. Then what I'll do is we'll call the question now. All those in favor of the motion to have Dan act as our primary nominee and Brad as the alternate for the Housing RFP Evaluation Committee, please raise your hand or say aye. Thanks so much. All those opposed, say nay or raise your hand. So it looks like the motion passes unanimously. And also I should say that we have a quorum tonight. That's important to do. So the motion passes. Thanks so much, Dan, for being willing to serve. And if you're game with it, what I'll do is I'll introduce you via email to Ellen and be like, hey, Ellen, goodbye, Ellen, here's Dan. And then I'm sure that she's gonna take it from there. Ellen, or excuse me, I think Stephen said that Ellen's super transparent and easy to share information with. So I'm sure she'll set you on the right path for how to go forward.
Okay, sounds great.
Awesome. So the last thing I wanted to share, last thing I wanted to share before going to the agenda is that it looks, I'm taking my glasses off because it's so serious. It looks like the pandemic is going to become an endemic eventually. And that's kind of was like a gut punch to me, because it felt as if what we had been working so hard for, where we could go back to the way things were, isn't going to happen. But I feel that what Stephen said is really important, is that we've all really contributed in a super meaningful way to tremendous progress, where less people went to the hospital than could have been there. You know, our zip codes rather have an increased amount of people who are vaccinated. But I did want to just make sure that we all kind of set our expectations that it looks like COVID's probably never going to be cured, right? Where it's something that's always going to exist. I don't think necessarily that ought to be our focus, but forever. But I do think that it's important. It was important for me to realize that COVID's going to be around for a long while, or at least that's what Fauci said yesterday. And I trust that too. So I want to make sure that as we think of, in our future and what our role could be as an organization, that we remember that COVID is going to be with us for a while, but we shouldn't necessarily lose our focus on other important programs and projects and community needs, but also just remember that COVID's going to exacerbate things for everyone, but particularly those folks who live in the WIT and serve us. So it's kind of a downer. And then Delinia and Thea, I see your hands up as well. So they were at the same time. I don't know if you want to rock, paper, scissors, but I think I saw Delinia first.
Pretty quick. My death count is now 7. I just found out I lost another family member. So yeah, let's all get vaccinated, please.
Mine's the same note as Delinia. My nephew just got kicked out of ICU because they don't have enough bed for COVID patients coming in. And he has been moved to the neuro ward despite not improvement. They needed it for COVID patients. So please encourage people to get vaccinated.
I'm so sorry, Thea.
Yeah, that's truly heartbreaking. And I care about you both so much, and it breaks my heart to hear that. And we're doing the best we can.
There's nothing to say other than get vaccinated.
Yep, we're doing the best we
We
can.
need to keep.
we're doing the best we can. We got 56 people vaccinated at our clinic on Sunday, which is huge. You know, folks are really excited. I didn't get my booster because I thought it was more important that other folks get in there. But yeah, that's I think what we need to keep doing is make sure that folks know that they can get vaccinated with us and that they're going to have a safe and comfortable and positive experience so they can tell their friends and they can come back. Claire.
I think you just called on me. I just want to say, if at all possible, if folks can find the time, of course, if it's safe for you to do so, to volunteer at the November 12th, because it's going to be a big one. I volunteered at the last clinic along with some of y'all, I think, and it was, you know, we had more people show up than there were shots, which is amazing. But imagine next time when there's going to be pediatric patients showing up as well. Just if you at all, you know, have the time, even if it's just 30 minutes, I just encourage you to come out and volunteer. I will be there, so see you there if you can.
Yeah, thanks for that, Claire. Delinea, I see your hand up, and then I'm going to pass the baton to Anand.
I just didn't hear the date.
It's Sunday, December the 12th, from 1 to 4 p.m. For the next piece around communication, I'm going to ask that Anand be the facilitator. I think all of you care about Anand like I do. I really appreciate his demeanor and how he facilitates. And I would just say that, you know, for 3 things for tonight, you know, part of what we're going to talk about are like individual communication styles. And I would say kind of 3 things that I hope that we can hold together and agree to is that first, we listen to understand, that we really listen, not for our turn to speak, but listen to what other people are saying and how they're feeling. The second is that we, you know, phrase our statements when we can as I think and I feel, rather than making a statement. And then last and kind of most important to me is that we assume the best of intentions. We assume that people are coming from a place where they're trying to do the best that they can, or they're trying to do the best through the action that they're doing. So that's the last thing that I wanted to share, and I wanted to pass it to Anand to facilitate. And I know that folks probably want to have time to share about communication. So Anand, I will pass the baton to you.
Okay, give me just a second to clear off a few things from my computer. I'm using my not best, so I want to make sure it bumped me off just a little second ago, and I want to make sure everything's smooth while we get into
Can
this.
I ask a question while he's looking, please?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. What is this about? Why is our not taking, you know, the bridle? Is that the right word?
Yeah, because I didn't know if folks were going to say, hey, Ian, I have some communication issues with me specifically. So what I wanted to do is pass the facilitation to somebody else so that like a neutral third party that could facilitate the conversation.
What brought this on?
I believe
Can I
this
just-
conversation was requested by Delinea.
All right, I've sorted some things out to some extent. Ian, I got knocked off for a second. Could you give me a very short synopsis about what you were saying just before that happened?
Yeah, I was Andrew's in the queue, and I was just saying kind of the 3 things that I wanted to go into this is that listening to understand, assuming
Right.
the best of intentions, and
Yeah, okay, got that. Okay, Andrew.
Sorry, I guess maybe I'm a little confused. I thought Anand was taking over because we were going to talk about grants and budgeting. I'm trying to follow the agenda. Just to be really clear, I thought Delinea was suggesting that the 825 item, we maybe don't prepare to pass any motions, and that we use that agenda item as time to discuss both communications around what happened and potentially the item itself. Am I off track here, or is that correct?
Delinea?
right on.
No, that's correct. Andrew's correct.
So I still want to bring a motion for the Whitaker History Project and have Stephen present on the Whitaker History Project. And so let me. Sorry,
sorry, I'm not trying to run the meeting here. I know you're the chair. I think that we should be on the grants budgeting conversation and then proceed through until we get to the charter revision, and then we'll address any concerns around that. So the budget and Stephen should go first, right? Unless I'm looking at the wrong agenda.
Excuse me.
Jennifer, yes?
Yes, thank you. I think that Delandia brought up an issue that needs to be addressed, and so it's going to change the agenda. And that's what we're dealing with. So, and I think it's important enough to be addressed.
That's correct. I wanted to change the charter talks to more of a communications talk, and, you know, pretty much get us all on the same page of how we're going to, the ad hoc committee is going to present the charter.
Gotcha. Thanks for clarifying, Delinia. So with that, I'll pivot to Anand to talk about the Public Health and Safety Committee. Specifically tonight, wanted to bring a motion for $15,000 worth of gift certificates. So, or not gift certificates, of vaccine incentives. We need to spend down our Lane County Public Health Vaccine Confidence Grant by December the 31st. And so we were approved for $15,000 worth of incentives for $100 gift certificates or $100 vaccine certificates. And so that's huge. We were super successful, but the question tonight is where to put the money. And so with that, I'll pass it to Anand.
Right. So a decision needs to be made about where we want those certificates to be spent. The two options that we have before us are either to have them all spent at Bruns Apple, and there's some reasons why that might be useful. The other option is to have it split between Bruns Apple and the Red Barn Market, and there are some reasons why that might be helpful. Bruns Apple has been very helpful to the Whitaker Community Council in letting us use their space. And it would seem that that would be a positive. The other thing is they have had a lot of problems financially because of a variety of issues revolving around the pandemic and the fact that there's a very large population of our unhoused citizens in the area, and that has brought some issues to them that have made it to the point where they have seriously considered moving out. It's possible that incentives could be useful to keep them anchored. I don't know if you guys know the history of this, but that used to be a Safeway. And a lot of energy got put into trying to get somebody into that space who would fulfill the need for a regular grocery store, which Whitaker really didn't have after Safeway took off. And they've done some really great things for us. The Red Barn, of course, is a historic place, and they are also a very useful member of the community. So that's the possibilities. Does anybody want to speak on what our options are? Delinia.
I think I saw Margaret's hand up first.
Oh,
and
I'm
then
sorry.
Delinia, I'll put you right after Margaret.
I'm sorry, Margaret.
You're good, and you'll have to excuse me because I'm on my phone and I've never done a Zoom meeting on my phone, so I'm learning to try to not to get rid of it. And I'm in a room and it's echoing, so if I sound funny, it's because there's noise outside of where I am, and I'm trying to come to a quiet place. So that being said, I would 100% support spending that money at the Apple Market at Bruns Apple. I cannot tell you on as far as board business goes, they've never told me no. I've gone to them about having pallets of stuff delivered and them storing it in the back of us. I mean, I go in there with community council business, and I can go wherever I want in the store. I don't have to ask anybody if I go to the back. Of when we first ordered the water bottles, I think we hand labeled 1,000 of them or something the first time that we did it, and it took us several times to do it. They're extremely supportive. They love the neighborhood. They do a lot for the neighborhood. And you're exactly right. They are experiencing some financial difficulties. They have never had the problems with shoplifting that they are having. They're losing money, and they have told me, and I know other people on the board, that they have considered just selling and getting out of the neighborhood, although they have a lot of personal investment. So I actually would make a motion that we just give it all. We'd go in there and spend $15,000 on $100 gift cards for Bruns Apple.
Okay, a motion's on the floor. We have a second.
It looks like we got a second from Dan. Delinia. Actually, he's not quick hands Dan tonight. I think it might have been Delinia who had the second.
Well, I had another question because
And then after the then we go into discussion, and that's part of it for sure. Absolutely. So we've got an emotion, we got a second, and Delia, by all means, please do have some more discussion.
is it possible to give the red apple the majority of it, or does it have to be split half and half?
It doesn't have to be split anyway. We're deciding right now where we put it. The one little wrinkle is like the Visa $100 gift cards or the $100 gift certificate. You know, that's, you know, the balance of it. That's the tricky thing. We can use Visa gift cards, or we can do $100 gift certificates. And I see that Jen has her hand up after Delinia. So Delinia, to answer your question, we don't have any restrictions placed upon us as to what the split has to be. And there was a comment before we go to Jen from Andrew regarding how much we've spent so far. Red Barn, we've spent 250, and Bruns, we've spent 900 so far. We've got Jen and then Thea. Jen?
Okay, so is there any small business that we haven't paid attention to that maybe we could help during this? Because I mean, I love Red Apple rooms, but I call it Red Apple. They're beloved to me and to many people in the neighborhood. That goes without saying. But I was wondering if there is a business that may be having a hard time that we might consider. You know, I think that we should give to Red Apple without a question. And I guess Red Barn, but I would like to spread it out to someone who might be in trouble. And maybe Delenia can answer that.
And so I want to jump in really quick. That's a great point, Jen. The one thing that we need to keep in mind here is that we have to use the $100 denomination, because in the grant, the research that we cited shows that $100 gift certificates drastically increase the likelihood of people who haven't gotten their first dose before coming and getting their dose. And you know, we could ask Doriandra what her experience, or we could ask Rupert what his experience has been at the clinics. And I think that he would say that, yeah, we've seen anecdotally just a wave of folks come in getting their first shot. So I think that we can come back and hopefully get more gift certificates for struggling businesses. I think the $100 denomination really is best at a grocery store. If we wanted to do Visa gift cards, or if we wanted to do just straight gift certificates. So I know Delinia, you asked a question of Delinia, so I'll go to her, and then Thea, and then Margaret.
I was just going to say, to my knowledge, I understood that we can only do the $100 gift cards, and like Ian stressed, really it's those things look like it's going to have to be like a market or something along those lines.
I get the point. I understand it. And I think that, you know, we have responsibility to support Red Apple.
Thea, we've got you next, and then Margaret, you're on deck. Thea?
I do like the idea of supporting Red Apple, but I do think we should also support Red Barn. If they can handle the $100 gift cards, because they are a small business. And they are 2 grocery stores. So it does give people options between the 2 grocery stores in our neighborhood. You know, and eventually if we can branch out to other businesses, Jennifer, I agree, if we've got a business, but Bruns is really working hard, but the Red Barn is a tiny business, so I'm sure they could use it. So if we can split it up, that'd be awesome.
Did you want to offer a friendly amendment, Thea, of
Yeah,
splitting?
so I offer an amendment that we split it between Red Apple and Red Barn. It's hard with all these reds in here. And I don't know, 20/80, I don't know, or 50/50, it doesn't really matter. Somebody else can decide on the amount. I just.
How about 60/40?
60/40, yeah. I don't want
60/40.
to, or 70/30. I don't want to lose Red Apple and I don't want to lose Red Barn. I don't want to lose either of them.
How
And I-
about 10K to Red Barn and 5K to, no, 10, yeah, the Reds are crazy. 10K to Red Apple, Bruns Red Apple, and then 5K to Red Barn. Is that amendable to you, Thea?
I'll second that, or I'll first it.
Or yeah.
And then I didn't want to lose who's in the speaking order. Margaret, you're the last comment that I see, your last hand.
Well, I just wanted to tell Jen that almost probably 90% of the small businesses in the neighborhood, I know that I personally have gone out and gotten gift cards from $500, $1,000, $800. And it's been spread around really well. But you know, if we do $100 gift card for Nelson's Taqueria, it'll be really hard to go up to the Taqueria and spend $100. Whereas a grocery store, it's, you know, we all know $100 worth of groceries is not very much.
I get it.
And I think that spending $5,000 at Red Barn, because they are a little smaller, and then 10 at Red Apple, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah,
That's
thanks for
it.
that, Margaret. And shout out to Delinia. She worked with me to make sure that we have a balance with zip codes too. So there's a geographic balance with how we've distributed gift cards so far. And we still have, to my modest understanding, Doriandra, do you want to give a quick update on where we're at with our current gift card stock? Just some by the numbers of kind of where we're at.
Sure. Yeah, I haven't done a tally since our last Sunday, but we are holding strong in pretty much all the categories. I've tried to put aside things that are related to children and family activities for as our pediatric rollout becomes going. And yeah, I'd be happy to get a count for you, a specific count this week, but our numbers are going down. So
Totally. Yeah. Just wanted to check in for
Yeah.
kind of like a rough estimate. So we have a motion from Anand and a second from Delinia, and then an amendment from Thea and a second from Gail for 10,000 to Bruns Red Apple and 5,000 to Red Barn for $100 denominations of gift certificates. And remember, these are for first-time vaccines, right? So we can't do the boosters. It's people will come to us to get their first dose, and that's the whole shtick with the grant. It's really enticing folks who haven't even gotten their first dose yet. So that's if I say red one more time, my face is going to turn really. Oh, sorry, Jen, I apologize. I didn't see your hand up. Go right on ahead.
What about the kids? They're going to be the first time. Does that include them?
Doriandra, do you want to add some clarity to that?
sure, yeah, the incentivization process across the board when we're receiving grants from OHA is very prohibitive about the $100 gift cards going to people under 18. Because these funds are coming from Lane County, we can actually do what we want with them, but there's still kind of a lot of pressure about not doing those 100 cards for children. So those will be primarily for adults that are first time. And then we'll be implementing the fun children-oriented gift cards that we have to the kids' parents.
Like bounce.
Bounce. Yep.
Okay, so you can't give it to the children's parents.
It's kind of a gray zone, and I'm doing a little bit more research on it, but I think the prevailing feeling among Lane County Public Health and Oregon Health Authority is that it's kind of it's just a gray zone. So I just really want to be sure that we represent our community and your council in the most appropriate way with the grant funds.
Dan, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, this is kind of a goofy side to this, but if I wanted to get my first shot and get the $100 gift card, could I go into Bruns and get $100 worth of beer? And if you see where I'm going there, I don't want to be judgy, you know, because
Totally. I don't think we can
$5
ask. I don't think we can ask Bruns to police. And Thea has her hand up specifically. So, and then Margaret also has her hand up too. So Thea and then Margaret.
All right.
So Bruns is willing, when I talked to him on the first set of gift cards we ever bought way back when, they are willing to put on their no purchase of alcohol or cigarettes. They can put a little sticker, or they can just let them know that this came from there. I'm pretty sure, I think I can double check with them, but when I talked to them about that, they were like, well, we can say, no, you can't buy alcohol with it. So I can double check if you want that.
Seems like a great idea to me. We've got Margaret in the queue and then Andrew, and then I'm going to call the question for us to do the vote. Margaret?
I was just going to say, when I spoke to them about that, it was kind of an iffy thing. I don't know if you've noticed, there's a lot of new people working there. They have new cashiers. They actually have gift cards. It's not just written out on a paper. So somebody swipes them. I think that they can swipe them through the machine. So it may be a little difficult for them to do that. And that's what they told me as well. It's a lot of extra work. But that doesn't mean that we can't do it.
Thanks for the heads up, Margaret. That's really good feedback too. Andrew, I think you're our last before we call for the vote. Go right on ahead.
Sure. I was just going to say, I totally get what you're saying, Dan. But I think Lane County Public Health kind of checks people to see if it really is their first shot. And to be honest, if somebody wants to spend the $100 we give them on beer and cigarettes, that's not really in line with Lane County Public Health's mission. But I also want to trust that people know what's best for themselves. And, you know, I mean, if I was getting one of those gift cards, I'd probably spend $10 of it on beer and $90 on groceries, you know, and I don't want to try and tell people how to live their lives. We really, I think our mission is to get people their shot. And to the extent that Lane County kind of can mostly screen to make sure that people aren't like coming every month. I don't think we're gonna have like a line of people out the door getting boosters every time we do it. And as long as we're not like doing that, then I don't really think it's our business how people spend it. I feel pretty strongly about that, I think. Even though that's not probably objectively in line with Lane County Public Health's mission, and maybe not the best thing for them, I believe in giving people autonomy to make bad choices.
I really appreciate Dan's point and your point too, Andrew. Delinia, I saw your hand up, so feel free to jump right in if it's quick, so we can put this to a vote.
And because the other option were Visa cards, and Visa cards, they're not monitoring what they're purchasing. So to me, you know, I agree with Andrew and Dan.
Thanks for that. And with that, we'll call to question. So the amended motion put by Thea and seconded by Gail was that we will spend $15,000 of the Lane County Vaccine Hesitancy RFQ grant funds allocated to us for $10,000 in gift cards from Bruns Red Apple and $5,000 from the Red Barn. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Nice. All those opposed, please raise your hand or say nay. All right, that looks like it was unanimous, and Stephen might have smiled at me a touch. So as punishment, I will have Stephen be our next presenter. Stephen, go right on ahead.
Responding, can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Responding initially to an email from Delania this afternoon, I can thoroughly understand the concern. When we decided that we had enough research and we were going to bring it to the board, we made that decision before the Delta variant actually hit. Really, kind of all hell's let loose since then, and we're just finally getting to the end of that. And I can totally appreciate that that must be one of the main focuses of the work that we're doing. And also the homeless work is key work to do. However, I do feel that we need to keep this project moving because we are not just doing this in a vacuum. We're doing this as a result of relationships with other people who are helping us with this, several of whom are Kalapuya people. So I would like to see this as a way for us to continue our research, holding off creating any kind of subcommittee to do detailed work that we originally talked about in the summer, and continue to deepen our understanding of the past of the Whittaker neighborhood. And it's in that context that this evening's proposal is coming to the board. There is a vacuum of information of the history of what happened around here between like 1846 and 1855. The critical dates there. Let me get the share screen. Can everybody see the screen?
I think if you drop that phony British accent, it might work. But
Yeah.
I don't. It's not working. There should be a green button. It's at the center of my screen. It
Yeah.
has the little green arrow going up. If you click that, or you press your Alt key and the letter S. Alternatively, I can share from my side, and that might help.
Let me try again. I'm toggling between no luck yet.
Jen, I will put you right in the queue.
This verbally. Eugene Skinner arrived here in Eugene Skinner arrived here in 1846. Jacob Spores, another key person, arrived in 1847, and John Whittaker arrived here in 1852. It wasn't until 1855 that the people who lived here were moved off to a reservation, and very little is known about that period. Everybody knows the name Eugene Skinner because that's where the town got its name. Jacob Spores is the guy whose name is on the bridge that I-5, when I-5 goes to the Mackenzie River. That's Spores Bridge. That's Jacob Spores. He was the person whose land claim was on the area where the Chaffin lived. The Chaffin were the people who gave the name to the Kalapuya name for our town, Chan Chiefin, the home of the Chaffin or the Chiefin people. His land was denoted as a temporary reservation for the people who were living here before they were moved to the Grand Ronde Reservation. Very interesting to know what his relationship was with the living here, the survivors of massive epidemics that has swept through the people here. Eugene Skinner, we know very little about his early interaction with the people who were living here. John Whittaker, we've spoken at length in the past. We know very little about his interactions, and his autobiography does not mention tribal people here. The proposal is to work with also on the tribal histories. There is also very little known about this particular area. David Lewis is the prime historian of the Kalapuya people. He's curating an exhibition in Salem this week and this month and next month on the Kalapuya history. He has made a proposal to us to take a close-up look at these people, these three people who were the key here, what actually happened between the first settlers and the Kalapuya people who were living here. As I mentioned to Ian several weeks ago, this is a possible opportunity for a close-up look at actual human beings from two different cultures living through a time of major disruptive contact between two entirely different cultures. Understanding the background of this will complement all the other work we've done in research and completing the picture not only for us, but also for the Kalapuya historians. And David has offered to do this work, and we are making a proposal that we pay him for that work, which is in line with general practice now, not to just think we can continuously tap tribal memories and get stuff for free all the time. So it's a way for us to reinforce this relationship. David has given me a lot of free guidance over the months since I started this research work, and this is the beginning for him to get to formalize the relationship with us. And we've made arrangements for Lane County History Museum for the archives, for him to access the archives for us, to pull the information out of the local history. And he'll also go to other sources, including tribal histories, to get the picture for us and then give us a full report on it. So that's the proposal, that we work with Dr. David Lewis to do this more detailed research, very specifically on these three people who were the foundational to the land where we live between 1846 and 1855.
Yeah, thanks so much for that really important context, Stephen. And I think it's important to bring to bear the feedback that we got last time about how not pursuing renaming, but instead pursuing research was the preferred kind of tack of the board. And I see Delinia's hand up right now, but Jen was in the queue first. So Jen, you're up right now, and then Delinia, you're on deck. Jen?
I don't know how to say this. I don't know how to say this. I am confused because I thought we changed the agenda order. So we're going back to Stephen, who's making a proposal for funding for this person named Lewis to do further research.
Correct. His name is David Lewis. He is currently an anthropologist at the Oregon State University, and he's a member of the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde. And during his time in his previous role, he managed the tribe's cultural department for 8 years before he began teaching anthropology at Oregon State University.
I saw that, but I was wondering, do we have the funds to contribute to this?
We do. So I could pass that off to Delinia to talk more about it. But what I'd say is that our amazing videos that we shot and paid for with grant funding from Oregon Health Authority actually paid us again for use of the videos in their social media campaigns around COVID. So we received $4,000 in discretionary revenue that Delinia put into our savings account So we can use this money for whatever we want to. And the proposal tonight is for $2,575 of funds. And it's in the savings account, but I think this would count as general funds. So I'm going to have to rely on Delinia to be used for this project, because we can't use grant funding to do it. We need to use general funds or discretionary funds that the WCC currently.
I'm a little, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I don't know if it was made clear that I don't think that we want to dismiss this. We want to hear about it, but because we're going through so many changes with the WCC, I think that it might be tabled until we have reached what our goals of changes, and that way we can really focus and listen to what you have to say, because it's rather big and it's very emotional. And that's, I don't know if that was, if I hope it's rude, because that's not my intent. I thought we were considering tabling this until next year. But I'm hearing now that there is a need for funds, and that's a different consideration. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, no one's made a motion yet. We're still just in general discussion, but the proposal is to build upon the more than year of research that Stephen's done in consultation with David Lewis and others, but now for David to be paid a fee to be able to do research on behalf of the Whitaker Community Council in partnership with Lane County Historical Museum, to be able to discover those three gentlemen that Stephen mentioned from the time period where there was first contact that we know very little about. So Delinia, you're in the queue, followed by Margaret, then Gail, and then Thea. Delinia, or sorry, yes, Delinia.
So the price is 2,000, treasurer needs to know the numbers. What was the number?
It's $2,575.
Okay, and then I guess the next question is when and how quickly do we have to make the decision? Only because there's, as far as concerns are, you and I spoke about, and we still have to talk to the accountant about the percentage that we're going to be getting from the grants that we're allowed to do for administrative costs. So I would propose that until we actually get those numbers, does this have to be a motion tonight, or how long do we have for the decision, I guess is my question.
I mean, we've been kicking this around for a while. I talked about David's proposal in September when he first sent it off, and then talked about it again in October. What Delinia is speaking about is called indirects for grants. And so I've written in indirects, they're basically ways that we can cover administrative costs in a way which doesn't basically put us on the hook for doing work. So for instance, for the funding pot, the vaccine confidence RFQ with Lane County, our indirect rate is 5% of $75,000. For the CDC Foundation grant, I believe it's 10%. For the Oregon Health Authority grant, it's 10%. So we're going to have a chunk of change in savings. Of course, we didn't do this initially with the first funds that we got in because we were so focused on getting it out the door and into the community, which I don't think was a bad move. I think that was the best. With the information that we had at the time, we were making the best decisions that we could.
Learning curve.
There was a learning curve there. But yeah, Delinia's point is, where are we at right now? And you and I and Drea are going to talk about this tomorrow, but basically we're going to be in a place where we're going to have probably $15,000, definitely $10,000 to $20,000 in savings just from grant indirects that we've recouped. And that'll be something that future boards, hopefully fiscally prudent future boards, but we don't get to decide how future boards vote, we'll be able to use that money that's put in savings and be able to administrate it in a way where they can cover ongoing costs like QuickBooks, like the treasurer, like Secretary of State. So PO box, insurance, all the non-fun stuff that people don't like to fund with grants. Next up, we've got Margaret, and then Gail, you're on deck. Margaret?
So I just want to say that this is something that we've been talking about since the previous board. It's not a new, this is not a new thing. COVID did get in the way. Sorry. Sorry about that. COVID did kind of interrupt the whole process and put it to a halt. So this is really old stuff that we've been doing with the board, and if we have the money to do it, I think it's a great thing. And it's great that we can take this piece of past history and just move forward with it.
Thanks, Margaret. We've got Gail up
That's all
next.
I have to say.
We've got Gail up next, and then Thea, you're on deck. Gail?
Thank you, Ian. I just want to support what Margaret's saying. We have the money. We have it in a free account that's available for us to dedicate it in any way we see fit as a board of directors. This is a really important project that we've put a lot of time and energy into, an opportunity to, in a tiny, tiny way, make better, not right, but better some of the injustice that's been perpetuated on the indigenous peoples of this area. If we have an opportunity to support this historian, to support this Native person, to support a better understanding of our neighborhood and our place in history, I wholeheartedly support it, and I think we should do it and do it as quickly as possible. It has been a long discussion and it's overdue. That's my opinion. Thank you.
We've got Thea up next. Thea?
Sorry, guys, I'm getting updates from the hospital, so I am paying attention. I agree with the ladies. This has been going on for almost 3 years, I believe, way before Stephen even started, way back. What is our ultimate goal, though? It's been so long. What's our ultimate goal with the research, Stephen? What would we like to see happen once we get this research? And I apologize for not being able to read the updates today.
The original request to do the research was with a view to renaming the Whitaker, but things have shifted as we've learned more. And as we've learned more about things that trigger white supremacist backlash and stuff like that, and have more sensitivity to how to do this work in a way that's healing rather than polarizing. The way that it's heading now, it has the effect of allowing me to continue to work on this with Dr. Lewis, and it continues to allow the board to focus on other things until you have really emerged from what is a fairly cataclysmic phase of your board work. And when you're ready to work on this, then you can, and we can have all our ducks in a row. But what the ultimate outcome of it is really not clear. We have several pathways that we have identified that I detailed in the report that I gave to the board. It's really just still a research phase, learning about this land, learning about all the early interactions, and seeing what our possible role can be in it as a healing role. So this is why I think it's important to continue it, to continue to deepen the relationships that we have, and we will come out stronger at the other end, more conscious of the issues involved and able to make better decisions as we move forward.
It's a good education tool. All right.
Yeah. It corrects possibly a lot of false information. There's a lot of stuff that's taught in schools in Eugene that make the early interactions here sound like the stories of the first Thanksgivings on the East Coast, which turn out to be a lot of fairy tales. And it will be really, really good to see what the actual story was of this period rather than what people like to project back on the past.
Okay, well, I make a motion to support the research.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second, but we've got Delinia in the discussion section as well. So Delinia, you're up next. Go right on ahead.
So here's my concern. My concern is that tomorrow, Ian and I are going to meet with the accountant and get a lot of the things straightened out. I know $2,000, $2,075 is not a lot, but if it's been this long, can we wait for the next meeting to actually vote on it so we have a better grasp on what we're doing? We just recently got all the information into QuickBooks, but really have just been working on quickly. So for me, my question is, we're a day away from just looking at the books. Is a week not worth just waiting just one more week?
So I'm going to let the folks who made and seconded the motion talk about that. In the chat, it says next week is Thanksgiving. I think I saw Jen's hand up first and then Thea. Jen?
Since we gotta listen to I wanted to do this, but I want it to be done appropriately. And I'd like it to be done at a general meeting, if that's okay.
I'll hold my tongue until after Thea. Thea, go right on ahead.
Okay, if we need to wait because our treasurer needs to know and Ian needs to know whether we have the money or not, could we do an online vote like we've done in the past when needed?
That's what I was
So can
going to
I
suggest.
amend mine to do an online vote once Delinia and Ian know we have the funds?
Yeah, yes, and we've got a second from Margaret. And what I'd suggest too is not make it a token gesture, but Thanksgiving is basically kabuki theater. I think I can think of nothing better than us actually wanting to know our own history and using some of our time before Thanksgiving to allocate these funds once we know how much indirect we're capturing and the grant stuff. And Delaney, I think a lot of what tomorrow is going to be is me learning a ton from you and from Drea, but also sharing my back of the napkin calculations are about $16,000 in indirects captured from grants. So I think we're going to be in a good place. But yeah, I'd say sure. Do you think by Sunday is enough time, Delinia, by Sunday the 21st? Cool. Then I will still have the motion in the second. The motion is from Thea and the second is from Margaret to vote in favor of the proposal that was brought forward to us by Stephen from David Lewis. And yeah, we'll do an online vote on Sunday. And Delinia, would you mind including in the online vote what our indirects are, how much money we have in our savings account from grants when everything's said and done?
I'm sorry, you broke up.
Sorry about that. Andrew has his hand up. What I'll do is I'll work with you to make sure we include how much we have in our savings account, right? So it's not technically in there yet, but we can say how much we have budgeted out for savings. And Andrew, I saw your hand up as well.
Yeah, sorry, you just said something about a meeting on Sunday, and maybe I missed something a little confused.
Yeah, I apologize. We've decided to do, well, we haven't decided to do anything yet. We'll do a vote on it right now, but the new motion and second is that we will have an online vote for the motion to support the proposal in front of us for the Whitaker History Project. So all those in favor, please raise your hand or say aye. And then all those opposed, please raise your hand or say nay. Great. Yeah, thanks for being understanding, and I appreciate you doing your job well, Delinia. With that, I will pass it on to the communications conversation. And still, Anand, if you're game to be the facilitator, I'd still yes, we have voted by email in the past, and we can't do an asynchronous vote. We can do an asynchronous vote with our charter, but you need to have every charter member vote by email. we can't just kind of like if you're doing a regular vote, you can't just have all the folks in affirmative and be like, okay, the motion passes. You know, if we're doing an email vote, even if someone's on vacation, right? That means the vote still doesn't pass. It only passes when we have every board member vote or abstain. So with that, I'll pass on to Anand to facilitate the communications conversation. Anand?
There, I'm not muted, yay. Okay, so would somebody like to outline what the actual problem is? Delinia,
It just, well, as you all know, Jen and I have been working on the charter. We put hundreds of hours and we only counted the hours that we met in person. One of the things is I feel like, and it's no fault of anyone except, you know, it's been like this rush, let's get it going, and trying to figure out a better way of communicating, because one of the things that was Ian's concern was the tracking of the charters, and you know, even a couple of other board members have tried to help us when I had to step out for a little while with Jen doing the charter, which ended up, you know, like, first of all, I think we need a format that we all agree to as far as how are we going to do this. There's been directions, and I think it needs to be written down, do this, this, and this. Jen and I pretty much thought that we did it correctly. We did it in Google Docs. You know, at first we were doing it in a way that was incompatible, but then we went ahead and used the suggestion of Google Docs, and quite a few members had chimed in. And then today I went to the charter and it wasn't the revision that we presented. So I guess what I'm looking for is let's all agree on a format of how we're going to do this, and you know, so we can use the charter that's being presented by the ad hoc committee.
okay. Jen, you got your hand up.
In addition to the format, I'd like to stress that the format that I'm using is Google Docs. And in it, they have this, I don't know where the term track changes came from, but it sounds like an old term from another time. But in Google Docs, you have suggestions or suggesting, and you can put your inputs on there. It's available to everyone that I sent out an email to, which is everyone on the board, to put in your suggestions. And when I looked at the email or the version that Ian took upon himself to do, it was exactly the same format that I am using. So I am perplexed on why that would occur when that time that he talked about was that he painstakingly had to put energy into doing that could have been used between he and I to compare the documents and recognize that they are the same. And it would have been so much clearer because unfortunately, he sent out a version that is not current. It has not been updated. And that involves our attorney. And that is time wasted, money wasted. And it's also hard for people to follow when you have two people trying to handle the reins. And it doesn't make sense. So the communication has been lacking, and we need to come to terms with that and everyone be on the same platform and, you know, put your cards on the table. So I cannot see the difference between the version that I'm using and the version that Ian has done. which completely surprised me this morning when I woke up to that.
Okay, Thea, you're next. And then Claire, and then Margaret.
So I'm wondering if we can come out with a format for communication when there are committees. So that if we all use Google Docs, if we agree to use Google Docs, we do that and we use suggestions and it doesn't get changed around, because I know there are a lot of us and we all have great ideas, but if we do have a format for any committee, when they use Google Docs, I'm just saying that for example, and you're going to ask for suggestions and we put a time frame in and say all suggestions need to be in by this time. And if you don't have them, you snooze, you lose, because this is like herding cats, folks, since we're all cat lovers here almost. And it can get really, really tough trying to get everyone's suggestions for the people that are managing those committees to, oh, I've got to take this person's suggestion, but you thought you had a final document that you were going to bring back to the board. So if we can agree on something, that would be awesome as all.
That'd be cool. Claire?
Yeah, and I think, you know, kind of just being outside of the conversation, receiving the emails, my understanding, and it could be incorrect, but my understanding was that there were, you know, 2 different Google Docs out there, links got mixed up. You know, I had some time blocked off earlier today to go through and look at articles 2 through 5, I think it was, that we were going to discuss, but then I was like, okay, am I looking at the document titled Current and Revision 2021, or am I looking at the document titled WCC Chart Revisions? And so I think for me, it was just kind of like, which link is the correct one? And in my opinion, I think that could be remedied by just having like one person in charge of sending out the link and one person in charge of everything, even if it does happen within a subcommittee environment. You know, having like one person in the subcommittee be like point. I think that could clear up some confusion. And I'll just throw in my undying support for Google Docs, Google everything, because I think that it's a really well integrated system.
Margaret?
So I just want to recognize everyone and how hard they have worked. Jen, I know how hard that you have worked on this. Linnea, I know how hard that you work. Ian, I know how hard everybody here works, and that everybody really, we all want the same thing. And I think it's important that we remind ourselves that we're a new board. We're still well under a year old, and we're still learning how to communicate and create those boundaries. And so that being said, for me, I know that with communication, a lot of times, and I deal with email, with texts, I'm on the phone all day. I mean, that this is what I do for a living. There's nothing quite like talking about it like we're doing right now. Things can be very misconstrued in an email. Sometimes they're hard to understand, to put together. At the end of the day, we all have to vote on what we think is the best anyways. So I don't think, you know, I think that everybody's work that they did on this and everything that they put together, somewhere in there is the perfect thing. And it's something that I know that we'll all agree on. So I just want to say for us all to remember that. That's all.
Thank you, Margaret. Andrew?
I'll echo what Margaret said. Thanks to everyone who's worked on this from a lot of different aspects, because it takes a village, and I haven't had anything to do with this until tonight, but I can tell that there's been a lot of work going into it. I think I understand the full everything that happened, but I'll say that what I understood as Ian's intent was to put it into a format that someone like me, someone who does a lot of editing in groups with like documents and things, could understand, and like I guess just my preferred format when we're doing something like this is to, I don't know about the content. I'm not going to speak to the content because I was having trouble reconciling the two. They appeared very similar to me, but the formatting of the document that Ian sent out was very legible to me, and that is very much like it relates to the way that I do my work and things that like I like it when I can see the strike throughs and things. I think that the other document, I can tell it's different, but it was harder for me to tell how it's different. So in the future, not that we should have issues with our two documents, but that I hope we can figure out how to make it, I think, more legible. And I think the great thing about Google Docs and Word is you can turn that off if you don't like seeing the strike throughs and everything else. You can read it as it's presented, but it's hard for me. I should admit this in a public meeting, but like I'm not super familiar with our charter, right? I can reference it and look at it, but the original, I'll call it the original, the Delinea Jennifer document was harder for me to see. Appreciated Ian's intent, even if maybe that intent didn't result in what we wanted, or I don't know how whatever you want to call it. So I just want to say thanks to Ian for trying, because I think he was trying to make it more understandable to someone like me, and maybe we just didn't quite hit the mark. But hopefully in the future, I'd love for us to get to a place where we can all agree on that format that Margaret was talking about, one document. And I'm hoping we can do it in a way that allows people like me to more easily see things, and also works for the people who are working on it. Because I know that you guys spent a lot of time, and I really appreciate that. It's super important work.
Thank you, Andrew. Stephen. Steve, there you are.
I did not raise my hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. My
Sorry.
mistake. Okay, Gail. Oh, excuse me. Delinea. Sorry, trying to get it straight. Delinea.
So to me, I understand what Andrew's saying as far as the strike throughs and stuff like that, but we were still using the same Google Docs. So you could still make your suggestions. I guess the question was more along the lines of how would you guys like to see it broken up? Because that's where the misunderstanding, because to me, I know that we were told to send out the first charter, and the way we did it the first time was we sent out the charter that we're under right now as a link, because it's not really touchable. So you can compare what the changes were there. That back in August was when we were told that we needed to switch what we were doing. And we did. We switched over to Google Docs and asked for suggestions. As far as, or comments, excuse me, it was comments. As far as suggestions, you can still go in there and make your suggestions. But it was like a merged, weird thing of both the charter that we're under and the charter revisions. So for me, Ian's looked more like a mess than, because all we were asking for was the comments on the side. I understand what you're saying about you can take off the strike throughs, but would it be better to put it in an order where it's not only article by article and do a comparison, or every section do the comparison, is I guess what we're not understanding how that format works.
Sorry, can I respond really quickly, just because this is I have a suggestion how to improve the process, I think. And so the way that I would suggest we do this in the future is kind of a hybrid between both of the things that happened. And that's that you all need to like have your working draft. And I don't mean to make more work for you, but like the way I've seen this work, for instance, in like LTD's board, for instance, that's where I've seen this. That like there's the working draft you all have to do where you're getting comments from all of us, and that is not the version that gets sent out to the whole group, right? People who want to make comments make their comments, and then there's this step where you all basically like then start with a clean version and merge your kind of like totally edited version against the original version, and then it results in only the changes that you made. So you won't see where like I made one change and Ian suggested another change and Jennifer ultimately accepted something else that's not either of those things. You would see only a version where like if you change a word, there's a strike through, but that you don't see the 5 different suggestions on what that strike through should be. I'm not sure if that makes sense. I can provide an example and I'm really happy to, I think, make that suggestion, but it's, the intent is to provide clarity about exactly which words are changing and not about the hundreds of hours you guys put into making those changes. Because I know that you probably got a lot of really conflicting comments and we don't need to see those. You resolved them. It's more just about what the actual change is, if that makes sense. And I'm happy to send you examples if that's helpful.
That would be really helpful. If you could send us some examples, and then maybe be available to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm totally happy to help, I think, improve the process. And yeah.
Okay, thank you. Gail, you're next.
Yeah, I just want to observe that I went into the original document that was submitted with a request for suggestions from Jen and spent a great deal of time working on that document to add spaces and commas and editing to make it more understandable and more legible, because at least the version I was looking at was very difficult to read because of the formatting. After a couple of hours, I realized that I couldn't even tell if the document I was working on was a draft that was updated or charter, which didn't make any sense. And so I didn't want to waste any more time on it, so I stopped because I wasn't sure what was going on. Then, later on, I received another email that said that Jennifer had rejected 100% of my suggestions. Every single suggested change I made had been rejected. Now, I'm confused. Either this is your project and you have complete control over it, all final decisions are yours, or this is a living document with tracking changes that each of us is adding information to. Because I don't believe we can be in both places. If it's a living document, I have input, thoughts, comments to make. If it is not a living document, then I'm not sure what sort of input you're looking for. But I'm certainly not interested in doing any more editing that's going to be wholehearted, just like without discussion or input or comment at all, just right, because that makes me feel like I wasted a lot of time. And I don't know, I don't like that feeling, and I'm sure, I know for certain that nobody else does either. So there is a perception here that is problematic, as is. I don't know who's the final arbitrator. My understanding is the final arbitrator should be lawyers, because they're the ones who are going to tell us what is legal and what is not. But that's not the feeling I'm getting from it in this moment. So I want to know that.
I see. All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. Jen, I believe you are up.
Jen, you're muted.
Thank you. With this revision, it is everybody's input is needed and welcomed. It will be confusing and a little bit difficult for me because we've never done it this way when it came to we're doing it online. So that's my responsibility to organize there are things that are going to be brought up in common for the same issue, and keep that there. There are going to be typos, which are something that can easily be fixed, and it doesn't change anything, but helps it. And I also want to emphasize that the format that I'm using, when you're doing the suggestion, it is exactly the same thing as track changes. There is no difference. And I had to, again, reiterate that if you look at Ian's docs, his Google Docs, it is the same format. And unfortunately, I was disappointed that Ian did not make any contribution or suggestions of any type on my format. He instead I put his inputs on his document that he sent me this morning, which was a lot of labor. And then I finally had to come to the conclusion that we had to come to terms and use one format. And it's not about, and have one person steering the ship. It's not about managing it with everyone involved, because it's not up to me to make these decisions. It's up to us as a group. And once the board agrees with the review, and this is going to take a little time, that's the way it goes with a revision, then it also is up to our attorney. We've never had an attorney before. And so we have to work hand in hand together as a group and make our decision and approve it, send it to the attorney. The attorney may kick it back and say, oh, you gotta need to make these changes. And that's what we do. And then we agree with it as a board. And that is what the goal is. And it's still back to, we've got to agree on one format.
Yay.
Thank
Sorry, Jen broke my heart so much that
Yeah.
I rage quitted the WCC.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
hope
yeah,
that
yeah.
I'm not interrupting someone.
Confused.
No, it was
I am very confused.
totally, no, I was just joking. So I knew that I was next in the queue, but I didn't want to interrupt if there was conversation happening right now. Anand, am I jumping in ahead of someone or?
No, I think you're good.
Yeah, I was, okay, so I guess Thea is confused, and I'm gonna just highlight what happened. I went to Google Docs after many hours of working on Pages that Apple has on my computer. And then I learned that I can't use that because I'm supposed to be using Google Docs. So I did that. And that took a lot of time to learn how to do that. And I sent out my format, but just recently, Ian sent out his version of the format to our attorney. And it was a little jarring to feel truncated by sending off the email to the attorney without informing me what you were doing until hours before this meeting this evening. And that's where communication is lacking, and it's disrespectful. And I think that we have to, I don't know if you did it intentionally, because it felt to me, and I'm going to bring this up, it felt to me that you were behaving like you were with Thea when you usurped her committee that you appointed her to hold and be head of. And all of a sudden you jumped in and you're sidekick. And that's what it felt like to me. So I'm using, I think those new terms is explain how you feel. So I'm trying to stick to that. So that was disturbing to me and uncomfortable. So that's just touching on why this needed to be addressed this evening, the lack of communication. And everybody is busy. And I understand that. And we are a very supportive board for one another, that I do know, and we want to all be successful. So that is going for us. But somehow the communication has been broken, and we need to be honest about addressing that.
Thank you, Jen. Okay, Ian.
Yeah, thanks so much. First, I wanted to just lead with, recognizing the tremendous amount of work that both Delinia and Jen have put in, particularly because, as Jen said, she was used to a different technology platform, and now she's getting more accustomed with Google Drive, and that's huge. And I don't want to underscore the tremendous amount of work that they've put in. I mean, this is like the, rocks on the shore of the WCC. There have been boards passed that have tried to navigate the choppy waters of the charter and crashed their respective ships on the shore. So, part of what I want to touch on is just say thanks. And then also too, that I wasn't trying to usurp the process. And I'm so sorry if you feel disappointed, or if you feel like what I was doing was disrespectful. My intention was not to do so. And what I also wanted to share is that we all use communication differently. And so, Jen, what I wanted to share with you is that I did share with you my edits to your document. And I did so on September the 24th. And here are my track changes to your document. And you actually responded to my email. So I think part of that is that sometimes I send emails and you may, and I have quite a bit more to share. So I think actually sometimes what happens is that when I communicate things, I do it in a way that makes sense to me, but may not make sense to others. And specifically, I have been asking for this version of the charter that I did recently for several months, since August, but I was doing so in a way that I don't think was clearly communicated from me to Jen and Delinia. And the reason that I requested this version, and this is the version that I do a lot of documents with work, this is the one that I'm used to, is because this is what we've done in the past with the charter. And in fact, the past charters that you have seen, Delinia, and that you have seen, Jen, was in this format in which the city attorney previously and other board members from the WCC have contributed to the document in a living way. And it was my understanding that this was going to be the same practice that we took for this version of the charter, that we would all come together and be able to see each other's edits and be able to kind of collaboratively talk through suggested edits and go through section by section or article by article. So some of this is really on me. I tried to communicate via email.
Slow down. Can you
Okay,
please slow down?
Jen, it's not your turn to talk yet.
I can't follow him. He needs to slow down.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so what
That's
I
a good
think,
point, Ian.
yep.
That's probably a good idea.
I can certainly slow down. So, part of it was, I do have documentation that I did send you, Jen, track changes, and you actually responded to me. So part of it, I think, is me better understanding how to communicate with you via email. And that's something that I'm learning how to do. And I think it's some communication just generally is something that I can get better at. And that two is that, both kind of communicating what the needs are for this project, because the format that I submitted to everyone is what our attorneys are going to need to see to weigh in, because they're going to want to see what our charter used to be like, and then they're going to need to see, using a different text, the updates that we're suggesting. So I know what you're saying here,
yep.
and Jen, you sent it to me in a direct message, is that you need to understand that I'm using the same format via Google Docs, and this is the crux of the difference, that when the format may seem similar, but actually to the attorneys, specifically for the city attorney, they're going to be able to look at it a lot quicker, because this is the format, the way that I look at it, the way that Andrew looks at it, is the way that they're used to looking at it. So I think that irrespective of kind of how we got here, I'm really committed to make sure that we don't come to this place again. And I think that one of the ways that we could have made it a lot cleaner is setting the expectations earlier on. And so when we formed the committee, some of the things that we did for the transportation committee is we created a charge and talked about authority. And I think that what we can do moving forward is create a process and be able to create a timeline too for how we're going to be able to review the charter, and then also make sure that everyone feels heard, because I heard from both Claire and Gail tonight that they felt, whether it happened or not, that their suggestions were rejected wholesale. And also, it seems like you didn't receive the edits that I worked really hard on. And so, and this was to your version of the charter in September or September 24th. So I really want to be able to make sure that both of you know that I really appreciate you, that I'm disappointed in myself for the way that I communicated to you because it wasn't clear enough and it didn't both communicate the value that I see in the work that you're doing, but also I didn't communicate what my needs were clear enough. And obviously I need to find a better way to be able to communicate via email. But secondly, I'm really committed to making sure that this doesn't happen again for the charter, but also that we learn from this experience as a board, because I think Margaret's comments were spot on, that we're still learning how to communicate together and to be able to make sure that we're on the same page. So I don't know how I can contribute to that in a more positive way. I should say too, that my version that I shared is like almost 100% the same version of yours. What it does is it takes your proposed changes and it uses the charter, our current charter, as the foundation, and then all of the green text is the updates to the charter. So I just wanted to put that out there. I don't know if I've made things more confusing or less, but what I want to kind of leave you both with and everyone is that I want to be committed to making sure that we're communicating clearly via email, and that's something that I'm getting better on. I want to make sure that this doesn't happen in the future, and we have kind of a process lined out before we start collaborating on documents amongst us all. And yeah, I totally get behind Andrew or whomever else to have kind of an example of what we're doing so that we know what we're doing with process and how we're going to get there. And if this involves me sending the thing that I worked on previously back to you, Jen, I'm more than happy to do that as well.
Very good. Thank you. Delenia.
So I'd like to make a motion that Andrew go ahead and create a continuity binder for us of how we are going to do the format for using the Google Docs. So we're all on the same page. And then what we can do is maybe meet with Andrew and get all those different suggestions and everything that we've had maybe on one document and then just start from there.
Margaret, Andrew, are either of you seconding this? Nope, nope.
I'm
Jen,
seconding.
you're gonna second it? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so we've got a motion. We've got a second. Do we have some discussion on that motion? I think Andrew actually raised his hand first and then Margaret.
Yeah, so I'll just start by saying this is always hard. Part of my job, I'm managing a huge project. We've had dozens of sub-consultants and we're editing thousands of pages together. And I have some suggestions on how we can start to, I think, improve that process, but I will not promise that it will be hiccup free. But I sent an email to you all as like a reply to the meeting agenda tonight with like an example of what I think what Ian was shooting for, which is the intent is when all of those changes are made, right? Like I have some good ideas for version control and right, we need like one person to be in control of the version control, and there are some really good ways to do that. And I'm really happy to make kind of a document that summarizes what I believe to be the best practices on that to be. But at the end of the day, I think Ian's intent was to get a document that looks like something that's in LTD's board packet this month, which is basically that strike through version. And it's not the strike through version with everyone's edits, right? Like the committee that worked on this, you all are totally in charge of working through those edits, deciding what stays, what goes, right? It's not about, anybody disrespecting or taking power away from the people charged with doing it. It's about giving those people the power to do that, allowing them to do a version control, using dates and things like that to make sure that everyone who's updating it gets their updates included in the latest version, because it's very clear what the latest version is. And then the final version coming out in a way that people like our attorneys or people like me, not necessarily everyone, but people who do this stuff more often can really easily look at that thing. And I'm very happy to do that if the board wants to pass a motion to work on a process for this.
Thank you, Andrew. Thea actually was first.
So I would really appreciate that, Andrew, because one of the things that's happening is that we're having tons and tons of emails coming in. And it's really hard to figure out which email am I supposed to look at right now? Which document version? So if we have a consistent title, I know with my mother's work and her shows, we do pottery show. And then we put number 1, and then number 2 is the number 2 edit, and then number 3. It's the same pottery show for 2021, but we do an edit. So I would love it if you could do something like that, because I couldn't look at all my emails today. I was just like, can't go there, and I apologize that I couldn't do that, but that's not where I was at. So Andrew, I vote yes.
Margaret, yeah, I'm feeling like that too.
Yeah, there's a lot of information happening from a lot of people, and everybody has a valid point. But we're talking about Andrew, who I have no doubt knows exactly what he's talking about and what works for him, putting together a continuity binder that we will all follow, when in reality, although it's not in a continuity binder, but Ian kind of already did that by changing the format and by saying, hey, this is how it needs to be formatted. This is the way that we need to present it to the city. So I'm not comfortable voting on something when I don't even know what it is. I mean, I'm not real computer savvy myself. Angie had to teach me how to use Google Docs. I didn't know. And so, I mean, if he's going to put together a binder and say, okay, great, this is what works and this is how we do it. I mean, I would like to know what that meant before I said yes. If that makes sense to everybody. And isn't that kind of what Ian already did, although he didn't put it in a binder? And from reading his notes and his comments, he said, look, this is how it has to be written into the city's and to be presented to the city, and for it to be the charter, it needs to be laid out like this. So I am confused.
Andrew, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah. So Margaret, I'm not suggesting a technology tool, because it's much more a process tool. And what I'm suggesting is basically a standard agreed upon set of procedures, right? That says that like Jennifer and Delinia are ultimately responsible for the changes made in the document, right? That people can suggest things, and right, whatever tool they use, right, they're going to get those suggestions and they make those changes, right? It also says that the outcome should look like what Ian produced. And the goal of this is not to say, you have to learn to use a tool, you have to do it exactly this way. It's not prescriptive. The goal is really to outline a process that clearly says that Jennifer and Delinia are the owners of the documents. It means that people like Thea and Claire have a very clear understanding of which document is current, and so that they don't make edits in the wrong document, because we have several of them. And it says that the outcome should look a certain way, right? And however you get there is totally up to you. It's not about a specific technology. It's about the way that we're communicating with each other. And it's really, what I'm thinking of is like, it's not super formal. It really is just like a probably 1-page sheet that says, this is how we're going to manage these things. And this is how you would know that, like, the right person has accepted the changes and that you are looking at the correct document.
Right, but we still have to vote on those changes.
Absolutely
Correct.
They can't
No.
make changes and then say,
Totally correct.
Right.
Totally correct. But it also, I think, makes it more clear in the end what Ian's goal was, to make it more clear exactly what we're voting on. That is the outcome, right? So it's what I'm suggesting is something, it's just a document that we all agree is a good way to do the edits. And at the end, we may still not like what the ad hoc committee came up with, but it's both more clear, it's clear at every step of the way how they made those edits, which document they made those edits in, and what we're voting on.
I
It's
get
just
it.
about clarity. It's not about what they do.
And
It's
I
just the
just wanted to
structure of what they're doing is what you're talking about.
I just wanted to chime in too, that all of us may not like what the attorneys put in, but we might have to do it anyway. So I think that the process is an important conversation, because that leads to, you know, the attorneys weighing in, which ultimately leads to our vote as a board. And remember, our vote as a board may be rejected by our own members, right? Our own members may say, no, board, you're wrong, right? And so it's this multi-step process, but I don't even think we get to the attorneys unless we have process. I don't even think we get to our board voting unless we have the attorneys. And I don't even think we get to the membership voting unless we have consensus among the board. So I really support Andrew's thrust for a process, and thanks so much for being willing to put that together for us.
Okay, Jen, and then we're going to call the question.
God, a number of things. First of all, I want to apologize that Claire and Gail had to, you dealt with the current charter instead of the revision. And that I apologize for not having that clarity. So I need that off my mind, because I wasted time for you. And I appreciate your efforts. So I think now we're headed towards the same goal in this conversation. And I haven't reached an end. We haven't reached an end. I was making changes or adding my inputs on yours, Ian, today, but then I got very exhausted, trying to cross over everything and do it on yours. And I saw what Cordelia Daniels' inputs were. There's just so much. And the enormity of putting my inputs into the way that you have delivered it, which I appreciate and understand that you're saying that that's the way it's going to be read by the attorneys and the city attorney, and perhaps, human rights. I get that. We want to send it the right way. That's the ultimate goal. It's not about control. It's about getting it right, and that we're together in the same page. So where are we now? Because I think we need to take this time to have some form of communication so that we can go forward.
That's kind of what we're working on right now. So Delinea, would you like to restate your motion so that we can vote on it?
Yes, I would like for Andrew to write down a process for us of exactly how we need to present documents to each other. I think is what I'm looking for.
Okay, and Andrew, you're okay with that?
Andrew?
Okay, so everybody who would like to have that happen, please raise their hand. Somebody making a count on this? Okay, very good. And anybody who objects, please raise their hand. Okay, I think we're good. Yay.
Thanks
Okay,
so
so where
much.
do we stand right now? Is there a due date on this document?
Can I?
Okay,
well,
Ian, you want to take it from here? I think we handled most of the important stuff there.
Yeah,
I just want to answer the question for Jen real quick.
Sure.
So what we're going to do, Jen, is we'll wait till Andrew pulls out his, he sends us the process, and then we'll look at the Google Docs and not a start over, but we'll fix it to where it needs to be fixed.
Okay, so then that means that we're going to have to push back until we grasp what everyone could read ultimately. Am I understanding that? Am I understanding that correctly? Anybody?
I guess my point of order is more around, I think the process that we use to get to where we are today is where I think what I can do will help us in the future. It will not help us today. My understanding of the document that Ian put out, and I look to Jennifer and Delinea to be the experts on this. When I was reading through it before the meeting, it looked to me like Ian took your changes and then put them in the format that it should come out as. And what I'm suggesting is an improvement like all the way through, and the output that Ian emailed us to me, having not thoroughly reviewed the whole thing, is that he took your changes and put them in the output format that we should have. And if that is true, then I don't believe that we need to delay this anymore. If we make more changes, I think that we'll do it in a more deliberate way. But if there's a question about whether the version that Ian put out matches your version exactly, then I think we need to kind of address that. But I don't think we need to wait on this if that version, if everyone accepts that that version is the same in a slightly different format than what you made. And I don't have an answer to that.
Okay.
Yeah, Jen.
Okay, so this is going to take some time because if we go using Ian's format, and I understand we need to get there, that I need to redo and address everything that reflects the latest update, because the one that you used, Ian, is not the latest update. And so how do we address that? How would you suggest?
What I'll do is I'll volunteer something here. If you send me let's call it the version that you think is final, right? You've incorporated everyone's edits and things. What I can do is really quickly, because there's a technology solution to this. If you send me the version that you say, this is what we think it should be, what I can do is I can, without making any other changes, just smash it together with the original charter, and it will look exactly like what Ian was trying to do. And that way, I'm not accusing Ian of making any changes here. I'm just saying we can 100% be sure that what the ad hoc committee believes the charter should be, I'll just smash that into the original charter, and then Microsoft Word or Google Docs will put out the version that it should look like.
Can you make it Google Docs, please?
Yes.
Thank you, please. And is that okay with you, Ian?
Totally. I feel
I'd
I feel like we've really grown a lot from this, and we didn't go at each other's throats. I agree with Thea that we need a group hug, but we can't do that right now. But yeah, I mean, this for navigating conflict, I think we did pretty well. And Claire has her hand up.
Claire? Yep.
I was going to say, in place of a group hug, maybe you would enjoy Lavender in her little blanket fort.
Aww,
And
that's
she
so
just
nice.
snuggled back down to
Yes.
perfect timing.
I must admit, I am feeling rather like going to bed.
Boom. And so I feel a lot better. Here's what I think I understand now. Jen and Delinea are going to be the ones who control the same version that Jen has, but it will be in the format that Andrew provides, the one that I shared with people, and it will be on Google Docs. Once that format's finalized, we'll still proceed when Jen and Delinea feel confident that the version that Andrew's creating matches the same one that Jen and Delinea have put together.
That sounds good. I just want you to know, I want to hear you say it, that you understand I'm using Google Docs. I'm not using the same applications that you are using.
Totally. And that's a communication thing on my part, Jen, not yours. So I need to find the same language and a better way of expressing myself. But yeah, I feel like we've made tremendous progress tonight. And I just really appreciate everyone. Yeah, I just really appreciate everyone, and Lavender too, and Rupert, of course. Before we end, I did want to talk about future meetings. December is going to be a big one. Our general meeting is going to be really big. I hope that even though she's not here, Claire Shepman, heads up, they've hired a new market manager. Claire's shoes are big. She can never be truly replaced, but they've hired on, I think, maybe 1 or 2 people, given them an offer to be the new market manager for the Whitaker Community Market. So that's super exciting news. I'd love to have the new market manager or market managers come to our general meeting and introduce themselves to the community, but also Washington Jefferson Park demobilization. That's going to be really, really a big meeting with people having a ton of opinions. So I'm hoping, I don't think she has a cool new job yet, Andrew. I mean, she works for us, which is, she's a contractor for us. So kind of like a cool new job, cool contract job. But yeah, I just wanted to let folks know, please share with your neighbors, with your friends, with business owners to come to our December meeting, because we're going to have people from community relations, from police department, from public works, from parks and open spaces. So a ton of different representatives from the city talking about Washington Jefferson Park. And then Jen, I think you have the last word tonight.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Oh God, I lost my train of thought. Okay. Oh my God, I lost it. Oh my God, I got excited about all the things that you were saying. Oh, can anyone read my mind? I'm so sorry.
It's very filthy. I wouldn't say it in polite company. Jen, please don't ask me to do that again. I'm heartbroken.
Okay, so
Jen, was it about the next meeting? Something about the next meeting?
I'm going to touch on that. So then we're going to have everything done, Andrew, so that at the December meeting, board meeting, we can start to address the articles and the revision. Is that correct? And there's peace in the family again.
Peace in the Family. That's the title of our first album, Peace in the Family. Thanks, Jen. Yeah, it'll be a Christmas album. Yeah, I'm really excited. Yeah, I have some work to do on my pitch. I'm a little below a non, but I'll work towards it. Wit or quit. I love that.
Okay, well, I remember what I was going to ask. So when you do the recordings and I go look at them, I notice that we can't view chat or none of the names come up. Is there anywhere that could be? And the reason I'm asking this is because of privacy when it comes to Article 4 membership. And I want, because we have a online meeting and we have an in-person meeting in the future. And there's a way of addressing the sign-in. So we have to protect people's privacy. So that's what I'm trying to find out. Did I make sense?
Yep.
Does somebody have?
Yeah, so I don't know how to do that right now to have the chat show up in the recording. But you have access to the chats when they're recorded. Like after I press stop recording, we will have access to those.
I guess what I really want to say is are the people that come to the meetings when they're online protected? Is their privacy protected? Because I don't think I need to see it, unless it's a personal, like I'm working on a project. I'm just thinking of the people who come to the meetings of our membership and even the public. Is their privacy protected?
Yep.
Because they're going to have, because we have our names and stuff like that. And we're on YouTube. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yep. So the chats aren't on YouTube. And people... Go ahead, Delaney.
And Jen, Ian gives everybody the opportunity to turn off the camera before the recording. So, and then in the chat, like Claire's a really good example where hers says best on it, where they can change their name and stuff like that. But it is a public meeting. And, everybody has that option.
Okay, so that means I'm going to reword something. So thank you for that. Gosh.
Can I interrupt for a moment?
Yeah, go ahead, Margaret.
Just a really quick question. Does anyone know the organization that was doing the Thanksgiving dinner that we were giving those 500 bottles to?
Yeah, it's The Way Home.
Who they are?
Yeah, it's called The Way Home. The Way Home. Nick,
can you email that to me?
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll introduce you. I'll introduce you to Nick via email, Margaret.
That would be fantastic. And if you could do that before the end of the week, that would be great. So we can make sure that, you know, it's all up and running.
Sounds great. Will do.
Is there a meeting next,
Thank you.
No,
is there a meeting next week?
The meeting is called Spending Time with Your Loved Ones and Eating Enough Pie for a Month. Yeah. Well, yeah, thanks so much, everyone, for going a little bit over time. I really appreciate the conversation today. And I hope you have some great time with family and friends. Cheers, everyone.